Yay. Okay, everybody. We are ready to start our Ladies Let's Go Fishing Zoom meeting. And we have Steve Carson, who's going to talk with us about Penn reels and what Penn is all about. If you're going fishing, you're going to need a rod and reel, of course. And Penn makes all kinds of rods and reels. We're going to get into that in a moment. First for Ladies Let's Go Fishing, we have some fall events coming up that are very exciting. We've got our September 23rd and 24th bass fishing on pontoon boats with a tournament and a bonfire, entertainment and everything at Lake Wales. We just opened up another boat, so if you want to go there, check out our website. There are only a few slots left. October 7th through the 9th, we have our Amazing Keys event. You're going to love that one. We have 2 parties, fishing Friday and Sunday. Our Fun Fishing Fever tournament on Saturday is our full day seminar to learn about inshore and offshore fishing and fishing basics. I am holding some amazing boats. I've got Carib Sea, some slots on Friday and Sunday. I recommend everybody signs up as soon as you can, because once these slots are full, fishing is going to be limited. November 19th through the 20th, we have our St. Augustine Surf Fishing Academy. We have a few slots open for Sunday, but that is pretty much full. Ladies Let's Go Fishing is where you can learn, practice, and go fishing. So, Penn has been a sponsor of Ladies Let's Go Fishing and provided us rods and reels that you can get. I'm working on my next silent auction, and we'll have a live one on October 7th through the 9th, where you can bid, and our auctions are always great deals. Penn is, I say, if you buy quality, you'll only pay for it once. So at this point, I would like to open up to Steve to talk about Penn reels, spinning reels, conventional reels. Let's start about spinning reels and what you need to know about that. And what's cool about some of the reels, most of them, I think maybe all, is they tell you like what kind of line to use, all kinds of great stuff. Take it away, Steve.
Okay, you may want to switch my picture to the big screen, because I'm going to show some things that have relative size, and hopefully people can see that relative size. I don't know if you can do it. If not, then we'll just go forward with what we have. If you can you switch my picture to the big screen, the big
Yeah,
part
I
of the
have
screen?
you on
Yes.
speaker view
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is he on speaker view, everybody?
Yeah. But the big picture is you, though. So
right,
can you
for
make
everybody
me the
else,
big picture?
is
No, I see Steve.
Yeah.
if I quit
Okay.
talking
Big
on the
screen.
little picture.
Okay, well, if you
I
can
see
see
your
on the
big
big screen,
screen.
then that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, spinning
screen.
reels are the most popular style of reels. I have an example of just about all of them, but we can go over all of them in a minute. But spinning reels are going to be the most popular, the most versatile. And although I'm all the way out in California, of course, most of you are in Florida. And interestingly, my 22-year-old niece who lives in Hawaii just emailed me last night and has a new boyfriend who likes fishing. So now she wants me to get her a fishing rod so she can go and look like she knows what she's doing with her new boyfriend. So, it's funny how that all works. But spinning reels, and for those of you that aren't sure, that is a spinning reel. And that is about as small as they come. That's a 1,000 size. Now, there was a time many, many years ago when all the reel manufacturers cooperated with each other, and any given size was the same in any brand. Well, of course, that doesn't apply anymore, but within any given brand, the sizes do make sense. So a 1,000 size is usually about the smallest. That's smaller than you would ordinarily use for just about anything in salt water. You might be able to use it for small fish in freshwater like bluegill or trout up in the mountains, things like that. And then they go all the way up to, I don't actually even have a spinning reel as big as they get. That's a 9,000 size. Look at that, it fills up the whole screen. I don't even have a 10,000 size reel. It's even too big for me. And so you can kind of see the contrast, and then every size in between based on what you personally are going to be doing. Now, luckily, Florida fishing is pretty well known. There's not a lot of secrets there. And there are kind of three sizes that are the most popular. One is the 2,500 size, and that is a very popular size for your smaller inshore fish, whether they be you know, any small bonefish, small snappers around pier pilings, things like that. Pretty much any fish under about 15 pounds. You can catch a bigger one than that, but that you can kind of use that as a kind of a personal measuring stick. Probably overall, the most popular size reel in Florida is the 4,500 size. You can see it's a little bit bigger than a 2,500, still a lot smaller than that 9,000. And that will allow you to catch fish pretty comfortably up to about 25 or 30 pounds. You can certainly catch a lot bigger one than that. But in terms of, you know, what's going to be easy for the angler and easy on the tackle, that's going to be the most popular. And if you're fishing inshore, that is, you know, where it's not deep sea. Okay, if you're fishing anywhere, let's just say less than 30 or 40 feet of water, whether you're near the shore or even if you're a few miles out, that will cover it. If you're going out a little bit further, where you might be catching mahi-mahi or small tuna, small amberjack, that kind of thing, fish up to about 60 or 70 pounds, the 6,500 size. So between those three, the 25, the 45, and the 6,500, that will cover about 90% of all fishing in Florida. The only things that it won't cover are very, very large fish that are in heavy cover on wrecks or on reefs, or the really large billfish that are out away, you know, way out offshore. But that'll cover just about everything. And really, if you live near the shoreline and you fish around your house, most of the time, you could probably pick either a 25 or a 4,500 size and have it do just about everything that's near where you live. In general, on a 2,500 size, and Betty mentioned it earlier, I don't think that this will even remotely show up, but I'm going to show it to the screen anyway. All the reels, can you guys see those numbers? I don't know. I can't see them, but I can see that they're up there.
They're blurry.
Every reel will tell you how many yards of what pound test line they'll hold. They also, unhelpfully for me anyway, they'll also give it to you in the metric system. So if those are the first numbers that you see, you're like, 30 millimeter line, I don't know what that is. Don't worry. Just keep looking around. Somewhere on there, it will have it in a more traditional rating system. Generally, on a reel of this size, you'll be using, if using a monofilament line, you'll be using probably about 10-pound test. Could be using 8. Or with braided line, you might be using 15 to 20-pound braided line. With the 4,500 size, generally you might be using around 12 to 14-pound test with monofilament, and possibly around 20 to 30-pound test with braid. And with the 6,500 size, again, you're going out after those bigger fish. So you might easily hook a fish that's 50, 60, 70 pounds. You want to make sure you can handle it. Typically, I will have either 20 to 25-pound test monofilament. I almost always use braid on a big reel like this, which means I'll be using 40 to 50-pound test braid. And typically, when you're fishing out away offshore where the water's deep and the fish are big, you want a reel that holds at least 300 yards of the pound test line that you're using. If you're fishing in closer to shore, generally, typically 200 yards is enough line. If a fish gets more than 150 yards away from you, chances are it's going to wrap you around a pier piling or a rock or something like that. So you don't need quite as much yardage when you're out when you're in close to shore, because the fish are looking for something to tangle you up on. Whereas when you're out away offshore, the fish, their defense from, if they feel threatened, is just speed. They just run away as fast as they possibly can. And so you want to make sure you have enough yards to tire them out. Now,
Can you tell them when they need a spinning reel, and then we'll get into conventional reels, and then show them the drag system that slows down the fish like the brakes of the car, like lefty,
yes.
righty, tighty.
Okay, well, first we'll go, I'm glad you brought that up. First, we'll hit all the styles of reel very quickly so you can kind of see what we're talking about, and then go through the drag adjustment of each and why you would change the drag or when. So we've already looked at the spinning reel. The next most common reel is the conventional style reel. And that kind of looks kind of like that. Reels that way. And those almost always have a star drag. And they can either be a manual level line, meaning your left thumb keeps the line going on level, or you can get a level line version where, I don't know if you guys can see that. I think you can. What's called a pawl goes back and forth and lays the line on evenly. Now that's great for light and medium duty fishing. When we get to the very heavy reels, you'll find that very heavy reels never have the level line mechanism because, again, for light and medium duty fish, they're fine. If you hook a big tuna or a marlin or a shark or something like that, or a big grouper, the level line mechanism can be a little bit fragile. So the reels that are made for those big giant fish don't have the level line mechanisms on there. But for, again, fishing in close, if you just want something that's convenient, it is a nice little convenience to have. So that's a conventional reel. Conventional reels can also have a lever drag, which we'll come back to in a minute. And that is a lever like that. And conventional reels can, lever drag reels can also be a 2-speed. So I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but just about all 2-speeds have some kind of a button and some type of a lever to go from high speed to low speed. If you're catching really large fish, being able to go into low gear, it's kind of like 4-wheel drive in your car. Give you a lot of pulling power. Obviously, you give up, excuse me, the speed. Now, when you go out away offshore, where you might hook a big billfish, a marlin or a shark or a tuna or all kinds of stuff out there. Now the reels get big. That's a 16 size reel. And just about always those reels are lever drag, and they're almost always 2-speed. Not always, but usually. And then you can get really big. I don't even know if this is going to fit in the screen. This is a 50 size reel. And this reel I actually have, I've caught a fair number of fish. This reel has 1,000 yards of 130-pound test on it. And when you hook a really large fish, again, a big shark or a big marlin or something, it can easily run that much line or close to that much line off the reel. And what is the drag? What does the drag do? What the drag does, so you get a loose end of line here, there we go, is obviously your line will always have some sort of a breaking strength on the label that might say 20-pound test, 50-pound test. It'll say whatever it says. It doesn't mean you can catch a fish. A 10-pound fish can break 50-pound test if it wants to. If you don't let the drag, I got that drag pretty tight. If you don't let the drag work, if you just have the reel locked up and you hook a 10-pound fish that's very strong and you have 50-pound test, he's just going to break it. So what you do is you adjust the drag so that the fish can pull. I don't know if you can see that. You can pull the line off of the reel under tension. So the fish has to work really hard to do that. And hopefully it can only do it for a few seconds or maybe a minute at the most. Then it has to stop and rest. While it's resting, you're reeling it back in. And of course that fish isn't quite tired out, so it runs again, but again, under that tension that you applied, but not as far. So then while it's resting, you crank it back in again, and the fish still isn't ready to give up. It's a big, mean one, right? They're not always going to be big and mean, but this one is. And this time it runs again, but oh, hardly runs at all. And then that's when you're ready with the net or with the gaff. And you'd be amazed at how big of a fish you can catch on relatively light line. You can catch, if you're patient, you have your drag set right, you could easily catch a 50-pound fish on 10-pound test line. The trick is, again, letting the fish tire itself out. Now, if you set the drag too loose and the fish is, again, a strong one, it'll never get tired. It'll run, you'll bring it in, it'll run, you'll bring it in until maybe something else goes wrong. Maybe the hook comes loose from its mouth. Maybe it finds that rock or pier piling to wrap you around and it gets away another way. So exactly how tight to set the drag, there's plenty of room for argument. And no two anglers exactly agree. And I was told there would be no math in this meeting, but I'm going to throw a little bit of math out there. In general, the very general rule of thumb is you set your drag at about 1/3 of the breaking strength of the line. Back in the old days, it used to be 1/4 of the breaking strength of the line, but line these days tends to actually be a little bit stronger than whatever the label says. So if you have, say, 30-pound test line on the label, then you set the drag to where it slips with about 10 pounds, if you guys can see that, with about 10 pounds of pressure. And that allows the fish to run. And as soon as it stops, you can work it back in. Run, work it back in. Now, there are going to be situations where you're going to run into fish like grouper or snapper that live near a reef. And if you let that fish run too far, it's going to get you right into the reef, right into their hole, their cave, whatnot. And you might have to set that drag as much as half or even a little bit higher of the breaking strength of the line. The problem there is, should anything go wrong, that line's going to break. So it's sort of a game to figure out exactly what the drag setting needs to be. But when you're just starting out and you need a frame of reference, 1/3 of the breaking strength of the line. And you'll see lots of people when they're fishing in, say, a big money tournament where there's money on the line as opposed to just pride or maybe dinner, they'll actually have a scale where they don't want to say, well, that feels like their 30-pound test. That feels like 10 pounds of drag. Well, maybe it's only 9 or maybe it's 11. And you know what? If you're just fishing casually with your friends or your family, that's probably close enough, sort of by the seat of your pants. But if it really, really counts, there are lots and lots of people, the more serious anglers, that definitely do set their drag with a scale. But once you get good at it, you can get pretty darn close. And if you're not fishing in a big money tournament, you can kind of pull on it a couple of times. With a spinning reel, the way you adjust the drag is this little dial in the front. I don't know if you guys, if you can see that. My hand is getting in the way, sorry. But the dial in the front, and righty-tighty, if it's facing away from you, lefty-loosey. Everybody knows that from trying to work on things in the garage. Spinning reels are really probably the simplest reel to adjust the drag on. On a star drag reel, again, I don't know if you can see that exactly perfectly. It looks like a star, it's a little dial. And as you crank it, as you pull it towards you, I'm pulling it towards me, you're tightening it. If you want to loosen it, you push it away from you. And same thing, you just kind of get it to where you want it and boom, it's set. You don't really mess with it too much. Lever drag reels are a little more complicated because generally a lever drag reel is used for bigger fish where more precise drag settings are necessary. You have 2 different settings on a lever drag reel. You have what's called the preset and you have the main lever. So what you do is you pull the main lever all the way back and then the preset adjusts the range that the drag is going to operate in. And then once you've selected the range, then the main lever fine tunes within that range. So you can get a much more precise setting And generally lever drag reels have stronger drags, smoother drags. The downside is they're a little bit heavier and usually a little bit more expensive. So if you're not fishing for really large fish, you don't even really need to worry about lever drags. However, if you're fishing for big fish, again, offshore, sharks, marlin, tuna, fish like that, sailfish, a lever drag is almost a must. So those are the styles. Less popular styles of reel are your senator style reel, which you'll still, if you go out on a party boat or something like that with 30 of your best friends that you didn't know you had, and everybody's bumping into each other, these are still the standard loaners because they're close to indestructible. They can take the abuse of day after day of tourists dropping them on the deck, etc. They're not as popular with people fishing in their own boats, but you definitely do still see them on the party boats. Rarely used in salt water. In fact, I recommend that you do not use them in salt water, but a lot of times your kids' outfits will have what they call a spin cast or a push button reel. Those are not a good thing to use in salt water because all the mechanism is enclosed and you can get salt inside there and it kind of makes a real mess. A variation of the conventional reel is sometimes called a bait caster or a low profile reel. Those are very popular for situations where you need to make accurate casts, either freshwater for bass fishing. I heard you mention that you had a bass fishing event coming up. These are very popular for that because bass fishing, accurate casting is important. Also casting light lures, even in saltwater, even for big fish. If you're casting a small lure to fool those fish, this style of reel can be very, very popular. And I mentioned salt being bad for one style of reel. The truth is salt is bad for every style of reel. And when you're done with your fishing day, you should really just consider that salt water is a slow working acid because that is exactly what it is. And it will ruin anything. I don't care what you have. I don't care if you've got one of these big old reels that's clearly made for salt water. And I haven't checked the latest price increase, but I think this reel is around $800. Plus I've got about $100 for the line on it. Salt water will ruin this in no time flat if I neglect it, because that's just how pernicious salt water is. So at the very least, at the end of your fishing day, you want to don't get a power nozzle with your garden hose, but just a light sprinkling spray, and make sure that you get at the very least, get the salt off the outside of your reel. And that also includes the rod guides on the rod and the handle and any part of the rod that's metal. The salt is just going to eat it absolutely alive if you don't clean it off. A little bit more thorough cleaning is a good idea if you have a little bit more expensive tackle. Sometimes you can just kind of go to Wally World and you have a less expensive combo and you don't really care that much about it. But if you've gone to a tackle shop and you've spent a fair amount of money on a nice Penn spin fisher or even a nice Penn slammer, or I think I talked to Betty at the ICAST show. I think I talked to her about the new Authority reels. Those are not inexpensive reels. And so you want to make sure that you take good care of them. What I like to do when I get done with my trips, and on my trips, I bring a lot of demos. So I might have a dozen or more rigs that I've let other people try. So it's a little bit of extra work for me, really well worth it. If you only have a couple of rigs of your own, just try to allocate a little bit of time to make sure that you rinse them off lightly with fresh water. And then there's a product that I like to get. And Betty mentioned another brand than what I use, and it's probably fine too. Just about any marine hardware store or boat store will have a product like Salt X, Salt Away, No More Salt, any kind of a name like that. And then I just put it in a spray bottle. And I'm a little bit of a cheapskate, so I cut it with quite a bit of water. That's perfectly okay. It's a blue color. I make it to where it looks like Windex. So that's about a 10-to-1 cut with water, but that's okay. Then I spritz that on the reel. Don't let it dry. Let it sit for maybe no more than a minute, but let it kind of soak into the nooks and crannies, and then rinse that off again with a light spray. I actually use my my kitchen sink, the little dish sprayer with nice warm water. I rinse that off. Then once I've got that thoroughly rinsed off, then there's another product that I use, Penn Reel Cleaner. You can certainly use, you probably use WD-40, but please use something. Don't spray it directly on the reel. Spray it onto a rag or a towel, and then wipe the reel down with that. And my gear gets used for, 100 or more days per year out on the salt. And I can't say that I'm meticulous about taking care of my gear, but I try to do at least what I just described to you after every trip. And it holds up pretty well. I usually get a number of years out of my gear. So if you spend a fair amount of money on your tackle and you take good care of it, there's no reason that it won't last many, many, many years. What else did we want to discuss? Betty?
Difference between spinning and conventional, like
Difference
spinning,
between spinning and
spins.
conventional. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, spinning reels are the easiest to cast with. They'll cast the widest variety of different things, whether a little bitty bait that weighs close to nothing, or a lure or something like that. They're the easiest to cast, and that's why they're the most popular. Because also, if you're bringing out a friend or a relative in the boat with you, and you don't want to spend the whole day watching them, you can give them about 10 minutes of instruction, and they'll be at least semi-competent and be able to have a fun day fishing with a spinning reel. A conventional reel, and again, there's a wider variety of choices. They won't cast the small lures quite as well, but with a medium weight or a medium-sized lure or something like that, they actually cast farther than the spinning reels. That's number one. Number two, depending on what you're fishing for, they may cast more accurately, which for certain kinds of fish, that's going to be important. Probably most important is that a conventional reel has a better drag than just about any spinning reel. So the drag is smoother, more powerful, more designed for very large fish. If you're not catching very, very large fish, if you're catching small, medium fish, spinning reels are perfectly fine. If you're going out and spending a lot of time chasing billfish, tuna, sharks, sailfish, that kind of thing, then you definitely need to get into a conventional reel.
Can I add something that
Yes.
if you're trolling, you're probably going to be using conventional reels, but you can also use spinning reels?
I would say, I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, for trolling, a conventional reel is definitely better because not only do you have the force of the fish, you've also got that force of the boat going one direction, anywhere from 5 to 10 miles an hour in one direction, and the fish going in the other direction as fast as it wants to go. There's a lot of extra stress on the gears and on the drag, and a conventional reel, again, a typical offshore trolling reel like that is going to be much better able to handle that double stress. And again, when you're offshore, you may be expecting 25, 30-pound fish, and suddenly out of nowhere, a 300-pound fish grabs your lure. Well, a conventional reel, you're at least going to have a better chance at landing that fish. I'm glad I neglected to mention the trolling. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I also have a Penn Fierce that
So hold it up a
has
little bit higher.
live liner.
Hold it up a little bit
see
higher.
it?
There we go. Now we can see it. Yeah. I don't have one of those. I'm glad you have one. That is a great little feature that anybody that fishes with bait, whether live bait or cut bait, is going to love that feature. Why don't you show them how that works?
Yeah, well, it has a lever on the back, and I don't know, let me change my background 1 second. I'm gonna do a blur, okay? So you can see a little bit better, but it has a lever on the back that you can set. Can you see that? A lever on the back that you can set. I have braid on this one, And when you're live baiting, that reduces the drag so that the bait can pull the line off the fish. It's very, very light drag, all right? Because sometimes the fish needs a few seconds, like 20 seconds, count to 10, count to 20, to swallow the bait when you're live baiting. And then what you can do then is when, let me turn it around. Give me a second. I don't want to knock my ceiling fans, all right? So let's see if this is better. I know maybe you can't see it. Let me just take, give me a second. Let me do no background. All right, that's better,
There we go.
right?
That looks way better.
Yeah, yeah, okay, so now I'm dealing with curtains and stuff like that. So you have this drag button, all right, you've engaged it, all right, this is unengaged, this is engaged. So the fish is pulling off line, all right, he's eating your bait. And that's way less drag than your normal drag that you set, all right? So you count to 2, 3, 4, you know, when you feel like the fish is maybe getting hooked, because normally we'll turn, when you set the drag, it's gonna turn sideways. So when you engage the lever, okay, I don't know if you saw that, but when you engage the handle, and you do it again, when you engage the handle, it sets it back to your regular drag. It's
What
hard-
that does, that lets the fish swallow your bait
See that?
so you can make sure you get him good and hooked.
All right, this is with the lever drag. This is with the open, the less reduce, and then when you, oh, I can't do this backwards, but anyways, when you turn the handle, it sets it back to your regular drag, and you can go back to fighting the fish. I hope, did you see that?
That's a very nice feature if you're fishing either live or cut bait. It allows the fish to swallow the bait prior to the fish feeling the drag. So you're going to get a much higher percentage of hookups that way. So that is a great feature.
It's called Live Liner, and when you're ordering pens, it's LL. And
Correct.
what's nice about the Live Liner is that you can use it as a regular reel and not engage the live liner at all. But when you're live baiting, then you have that option to set it so the fish can run, because if you don't have it set loosely and the fish is trying to eat live bait, you're not going to catch them. They have to eat the bait and feel like they're not hooked for a few seconds before you engage, right, Steve?
That is exactly correct. Sometimes they just grab it by the tail, and you've got to give them. It varies depending on the bait. It varies depending on the species. Sometimes they swallow them right down. Sometimes they grab it by the tail and they just nibble at it for 20 or 30 seconds, and you have to let that happen. If you try to hook them too early, you're just gonna pull the hook right out of their mouth. So that is exactly what that feature allows you to do.
Can you tell them what is the deal about Penn? You know, Penn has been an American brand known for years to help people catch fish, but you know, why should people choose Penn versus other brands? I know, just tell me.
Well, Penn started out in the 1930s as a family-owned company, way back, literally during the Depression. Their whole point was to allow people to catch fish. Back then, they had to catch fish if they wanted to have dinner, and to give a reel that was going to be a good value and dependable service. So fast forward into the 21st century, Penn is now part of Pure Fishing, which is a number of fishing companies that if you're familiar with fishing brands, you've probably heard of, including Berkeley, Spiderwire, Abu Garcia, Shakespeare, Ugly Stick. and several others. And they are definitely an American company. As far as Penn reels specifically, they're not all made in the USA. The more expensive ones are. That's just a reality of our modern manufacturing world. The Torque and the international style reels are still made in the USA. The lower price reels, they're not. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And but they make a very, very wide variety. Penn's business model is really salt water. You can certainly use any of their reels in freshwater, and people that fish for giant freshwater fish like giant catfish or giant sturgeon still use Penn reels in freshwater, but their main focus is salt water, whether it be smaller fish like bonefish or jacks, all the way up to the larger sharks, the largest marlin. That's what Penn does. Just about any other brand of reel, if you heard that somebody caught 1,000-pound fish on their reel, they'd be dancing in the streets in the corporate offices. But to the Penn folks, oh, somebody caught 1,000-pound fish on one of their reels. That's cool. That's what they're made for. So there's really no other reel company that can make that kind of statement.
I think that they're top quality, and all I can say is Penn rhymes with depend. And when you're out there and catching the fish of your life, and you fished all day and you've got one fish that you're finally catching, you're glad that you have a Penn reel that's going to stand up to the elements. And they're built by anglers, and they're very well tested, right, before they introduce things to the market. I think that's what you do.
Oh well, no, I believe that when you were at ICAST, we also did a video, and I encourage people to look at your channel. I think we also did a video about the new Fathom lever drag reels, as well as the Authority spinning reels, both of which actually the Fathom lever drag reels, we started doing the paper design 2.5 years ago. And I got my first, this is one of my early test models. You can see it's got some nice scratches and dings on it. I've been fishing with that for 1.5 years before they ever show up in your tackle shop or on your online retailer. So yes, they are very, very thoroughly tested.
Why are some conventional reels like kind of skinny and some of them are like wider? Because sometimes when you're fighting a fish, your reel starts flopping left to right and stuff like that. So
well, yes, your narrow reels are a lot more comfortable and easier to handle. And the main reason to use a wide reel is if you just need more yardage. Again, going back to this big reel, and there's no good way to handle this reel. It weighs, I think it weighs about 8 or 10 pounds, and there's just no easy way to handle it. And again, it's got 1,000 yards of 130-pound test. When you need that, you need it. You just sort of have to persevere and overcome some of the inconveniences of it. If you know you're not going to be needing that kind of yardage and that kind of power, then again, a small reel like that, a conventional reel, is going to be much simpler, and especially on those long days when you only get a couple of bites, it's a lot more pleasant to use something small like that. And then when you catch, let's face it, there's a reason that they call average size fish average. Most of the time, that's what you catch. And something like that is going to be a lot more fun and a lot more pleasant. Same thing with the spinning reels. If you don't need the 6,500 size, and that weighs, I would have to look it up. I believe that weighs about 22 to 24 ounces. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that 4,500, which will catch a pretty darn big fish, only weighs about 14 or 16 ounces. I would much rather fish with that all day if I can get away with it.
So ladies, you need to understand, like, for a spinning reel, like 2,500 is inshore fish, 3,000 inshore, maybe offshore. The 4,000, 5,000 is heavier fish. And the same goes on for conventional reels too. Like a
And
30 is lighter, 40, I mean, 30 is heavy, I mean, it's heavy duty, but then 40 is heavier and 50 is heavier. So you know what you're doing when you're ordering.
Here's the range from the 1,000 to the 9,000, and there actually even is a 10,000. I don't have one. So your middle sizes, both of your extremes are not going to be that common. Your middle sizes, 25, 45, and 65 for the type of fishing that almost everybody in Florida does are going to be your most popular sizes by far.
Okay, and I'm also wanting to show, give me a second. Here's the new Penn Passion. Let me change my background here. Give me a second.
Oh, I didn't bring my demo rig of that. Those are beautiful.
Okay, let me give me a second. Let's see.
I think it's easier for women to.
Let's see if you can see this. I'm working in my house and I have ceiling fans. This is the new Penn Passion. And Penn Passions are really attractive to women. Can everybody see that? Nod your heads. Okay, and they have new colors. It was a little brighter pink with pink handles. This one is kind of a muted pink, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So these are the new Penn Passions. I'm not sure if it's available in every model, but they are absolutely beautiful. And another thing I wanted to say is,
Meat and saltwater resistant too.
yeah, they're saltwater resistant. And when you get a reel, okay, it looks like this, all right? Looks like the handle is broken. It's not broken. What you have to do is kind of screw it in, all right? And you got to screw it in to tighten it. I'm going the wrong way. Which way?
Put the real down.
Hang on. Give me a second.
This is important. I paid people at the bait shop to do this for me because I thought I broke it.
Yeah.
It's on the reel.
Okay, but it looks like it's broken, but it really isn't. That's how they ship the reels.
It's on the reel. If you reel it the same way.
Okay,
put the line.
yeah, you tighten it up the same way. Give it to me, please. My husband's trying to help me.
Yes.
Did you tighten it?
No, this is on the rod. Okay. Put it like this right here and move it up that way right there.
Can you tighten it?
Doing it right now.
Yeah, what you have to do is kind of play with it and you can tighten it.
Bounce it off. You reel it on that way right there, just like the way you put the line on.
Okay,
now it's on.
okay, so now it's tight. So you have to sort of play with it, but you know, you can do that so it's tight. And then it has this knob on the other side that you can, I think you can take that off, right? And switch it from left-handed to right-handed. I don't normally have to do that and don't bother with it. But I think that if you loosen this, you can switch it. You can
Yeah,
switch
yes,
the
that's
handle.
correct. And that brings up a good point that with, which I missed also, on a conventional reel, which rides on top of the rod, okay, you crank with your right hand. A right-handed person would crank with their right hand. A spinning reel, which hangs under the rod, a right-handed person cranks with their left hand.
Because your pressure.
So now you certainly, as you mentioned, you certainly have the option of undoing this little screw right here and flipping the handle over if you really want to. But in general, a right-handed person with a spinning reel is going to crank with their left hand. I'm glad you brought that up because I neglected to hit that.
Well, let me add that is because if your right hand is stronger, if you're right-handed, your right hand is doing all the work with the reel, with the rod. And that's where you need your strength. Your left hand is used to reel, because a reel is not a winch. It is just a way to get the fish to the boat. So you need your strength in the hand that's holding the rod. Am I correct?
Exactly correct. Yeah, all the complicated stuff, the wiggling the lure, setting the hook, it's all done with your right hand. All you're doing is just storing the line on the reel with your left hand.
Okay, and then on our raffle, we have our, the two-piece wrap. And the two-piece wrap comes in a lot of sizes. And this is kind of cool because if you are, if you've got to put your rod in your car and don't have the space, but two pieces are pretty safe, right? Because you basically, take the, top part and you put on the other part, and then when you're done fishing, you take it back off. This is the Penn wrap. But you can get, pens in two-piece, and most of them are one-piece, but they have two-piece models, right?
Yeah. Well, not again. The majority of saltwater rods are going to be one piece, and you should see the look on the car salesperson's face when I show up to buy a new car and I've got a 10-foot one-piece rod, and if it won't fit in the car, I won't buy it. They pretty much always say they've seen everything, but not that. But yes, for your average person, a two-piece rod is a nice convenience.
And I think it's.
Yeah, well, it's an option. I think, maybe one piece is, is they're very strong. But the two-piece also is something that you can consider. At this point, does anybody have any questions?
I do.
My husband does. What's your question?
I think it's a lot easier for women when they're fishing.
Come on over here and
You
talk.
got to deliver at the door.
Okay.
Hold on.
Oh, you gotta talk now, Chuck.
Okay.
Forget the delivery. Just come on over.
I think it's, hi, everybody. How you doing? I'm Betty's husband. I fish a lot of tournaments and won a lot of tournaments on Penn reels, and I've been with them for over 40 years. And when you're on the water and you're fishing for money for the household, you got to have something dependable. And I think the conventional reels are great, but for ladies and for myself, I like spinning reels because it's a lot easier to work because you don't have to worry about which way your line's going on. And nowadays, these pens are so
Hang on.
instructable,
Keep talking.
so instructable that before you used to get a couple of years out of them. Now you get 5-10 years out of these pens. I mean, Penn is such a good reel, and you get, it's not what you pay for, it's what you're getting. Okay, and you can go buy $1,000 reel, or you can go buy a $200 reel, and these Penn reels right now are fabulous. Excuse me.
Sorry, I was trying to catch the delivery guy. Okay, let's open it up to questions. You can unmute yourself, because this is a really great opportunity to talk to someone from Penn.
I love questions. I love them.
Got a question. So I love Penn reels, and when I first started fishing again in saltwater, everything I bought seized up because I didn't know to rinse it. And my pens do really well. I do rinse them. I didn't know about the other products. It is, once a reel seizes up though, is there any way you can re-lubricate it or try to save it, or is it done? Especially spinning.
It depends on what it is. Again, if you've gotten an inexpensive setup from Wally World, then it's probably beyond redemption. If you have something that's a little bit nicer, then yeah, quite frequently, sometimes it's literally just a little spritz of WD-40 in the right spots and getting rid of the salt. In some cases, if you have only a damaged bearing, the bearing can be replaced and then the reel will be fine. Typically, you can either, you can send it into Penn. You can go to their website, and their service center is in Philadelphia. So they're reasonably fast. The problem really these days is so many more people are fishing the last couple of years, and they're breaking their old tackle out of the garage because of COVID or what have you. They just decided they need to do something out in the open. and a lot of people are sending in their older gear to be revamped. So they get a little bit behind in the service center. I would say, again, I don't want to be pinned down too much on a time, but typically 4 to 6 weeks is about right. And if you have a super, super old one, they can, depending on what it is, sometimes they can still work on them. Some Penn models have changed very little in 40 or 50 years and they can still work on them. Some of the older ones, you just kind of have to let them retire. But yeah, a lot of times, even if you've completely neglected the saltwater care and just one bearing has gone bad, get the bearing replaced, the rest of the reel's good to go.
So that's what happens when it won't turn. It's a bearing? Or-
That's the most common.
Okay.
Again, a friend of mine in a local tackle shop likes to post up his worst case scenarios, and almost always somebody will come in and say, "Well, I can't get the handle to turn," and he'll take the side plate off the reel, and it'll literally be full of sand.
Okay.
So if you've used the reel down by the beach, that a lot of times is going to be a prime suspect is that it would be full of sand. And then sometimes your local tackle shop, if they advertise that they work on reels, can do that for you. Or once again, you send it into the Penn Service Center in Philadelphia. Again, you're not going to get it done in a week or two. It's going to take a little bit longer than that. But every part that's damaged, they're going to be able to fix it and get it working, kind of, believe it or not, almost back to like it was brand new.
Can
Should
I
you
add
grease it?
something?
Yeah. Should you take the line, the thing that holds the line, take that off and grease in there, or is it?
Well, you can, if you feel like you're a little bit of a do-it-yourselfer, then you can definitely take the side plate off and add grease. But if the reel is completely, if you take the side plate off and it's completely caked full of salt or even worse, sand, it needs to be thoroughly cleaned out before it's going to work again. You have to get rid of the contaminant material.
Can I
But
add
it's
one
amazing,
thing?
it's amazing how well the reel will work if you do that.
Let me add one thing. When you store, you should rinse off your rods, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. Rinse off your rods when the drag is tight. But when you go to store them in your garage, back off your drag a little bit.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, you should rinse
Yeah, I
the
heard
reel
that.
off with the drag tight. And I should add, if you have any sort of a case or a zippered pouch or something that you store them in when you're not using them, let them sit out for a couple of days and air dry, and then maybe every day, maybe let it sit out for 3 days, and every day just pick it up and crank the handle for about 20 seconds just to move everything around. Don't put it away wet. Reels and horses don't like to be put away wet.
One thing they can always do too is take this cap off and drop off. They can take this cap off right here.
All right, then my husband has something to say. We're running a little bit long here, but is that okay with everybody?
Fine with me.
I think this is interesting.
Take the cap off right here.
Okay, well, come on over here and show them.
I'm gonna show you first. Give me a
Okay,
second.
well, show me now.
I'm doing it.
I'm doing it. He's showing how to take what? The drag off. Oh, take the whole,
The spool.
if you if in a spinning reel, if you take the drag cap off, you can take the whole reel off.
There you go. Yeah, now just pull it off.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so he's showing me this. Okay, so what he did was he backed, well, that's gone, but he backed up on that. And now I have the inside of the reel and I can see what's going on in there.
Yeah, you generally don't have to
Drop
do
some
that
oil.
unless you've gotten a bunch of sand or something inside there.
Right, but this is
Okay.
a pretty simple way of fixing it. All you do is put it back on there like that.
Yeah, you just like set it back on and you
Line it up and just put the.
line it up and put the drag thing back on. Anybody else have questions? Because we're gonna get to our raffle next.
Yeah,
This
okay.
is your chance to talk to somebody from Penn. If you are muted and you want to speak, raise your
Okay,
hand.
seeing that's already done.
Yeah, no.
Now,
no,
I can add, if they think of a question later and they want to address the question, I'm not the only person, but I'm one of the people that answers. If you go to the Penn Fishing Facebook page, you can ask a question there, and the Penn Instagram page. You can ask a question there, and I'm one of the people that does answer. I don't think that Penn has a presence on TikTok yet. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen it. So either Penn Facebook or Penn Instagram, and I, among other people, will answer those questions.
Okay, last call for questions. And we want to thank Penn because Penn provides us rods and reels. You're going to see them in our next auction. It's probably going to be sometime around September 13th for 5 days or so. And that enables Ladies Let's Go Fishing to keep bringing you programs so you can go fishing. Okay, well, Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was educational to me as well as the other ladies, because fishing is a lifelong learning experience. And when you say you know it all, you don't really know it all. Oh, I have a
No.
poll. Let me do it. Let me launch this poll. If you could all please, it's like 5 questions. Can not if you can see the poll?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, this is about, do you have a rod and reel combo? Are you gonna buy one? What's important? Because, that helps us learn, like, what are ladies looking for when they're fishing? So if you could all, please,
Let me throw one other quick tip that I kind of saved for in case we had extra time. Everybody that goes fishing needs to have their own pair of pliers. Got the nice Penn pliers here. Hopefully you'll get those. Every angler needs to have their own. And then when you're cutting monofilament line, a good old pair of fingernail clippers is the way to go. But when you're cutting braid, scissors are the way to go. So those are tools you want to have them right at hand where you can reach them, because it's amazing when you're out on the water, you need one of these 3 tools every couple of minutes. So have them handy and have your own.
that's why I like having Steve. He loves to fish. He knows all about Penn. And what about this? There was a page where you talked about the Penn.
Well, there's another one.
Bloody decks.
It's more West Coast oriented, and you'll pardon me. It's not my page. It's called Bloody Decks, and but it's a very popular place for anglers to gather. More West Coast oriented. There actually is a Penn specific forum called the World of Penn, and I am also a moderator there, so people can also either PM me or DM me there. But again, the Penn Fishing Facebook page is good, and the Penn Instagram page is good. Again, I'm sure TikTok is coming, but it hasn't gotten here yet.
Okay, yeah, because we haven't done, I gotta do my virtual background again. All right. Yeah, we're gonna do TikTok sooner or later, but I really appreciate it. This was an excellent opportunity. I hope everybody's okay that it ran a little bit long. And next I'm going to do our auction. Any last minute for questions?
Yeah, I have one more question. What do you recommend for maintenance? Like, I've taken my pen in and had it actually cleaned. I assume they're doing something that's worthwhile, or are they just taking my money?
Well, if you're sending it into the Penn Service Center in Philadelphia, they're definitely doing a lot to it. If you're taking it to your local tackle shop, you kind of have to take a little bit on faith on whether or not they're doing what they say they do. Most tackle shops are pretty good, but if you check around, you'll find that if there's 2 or 3 shops in your area, one will have a better reputation, and maybe go with that. But
is it necessary to have them cleaned?
if you fish in salt water, let's just say twice a month, so that's maybe 20, 25 times a year, you should definitely have the reel taken apart, cleaned, lubed, and again, the weak point on all reels is going to be the bearings. Have the bearings checked. Some of them may have to be replaced. Occasionally, some other major part like a gear or something may go bad. But yeah, I would say if you're fishing that much in salt water, once a year is good. If you're only going, maybe a couple of times during the summer when you're on vacation, then every couple of years is probably enough. And when in doubt, and if you're not in a hurry, if you're going on vacation in the summer, send it in January. And that's really the slow time of year for them. They'll get them done quickly, and you'll have it done in plenty of time for whenever your trips may be.
We're in Florida. We fish every day.
Yeah.
That's well, in California, a lot of anglers ski during the winter time. I can't make them stop.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
I have a Penn passion, by the way, and I love it.
Any other questions? Because we're gonna move on to the raffle now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. Steve, thanks for joining us. You're welcome to
Thank
stick
you.
around. Ladies, if you want to
Mhm.
talk to each other afterwards, you're welcome to stick around. But let's get back to biz. Everybody's bought raffle tickets, and we have a couple of pens on it.
Thanks. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
I'll see you online. I'll see you all online.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's get to the raffle. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Because without them, we wouldn't have Ladies Let's Go Fishing, Mercury, Take Me Fishing, Thomas of Pescar, Shearwater Boats. We love our Shearwater, it's on the market. Taco, Fish Florida, you can get a license tag with a fish on it, and it goes to conservation. Penn, of course, Fish and Wildlife Foundation of Florida, and Power Pole. That is a shallow water anchor where you hit a button and it's like a cricket on the back of your boat, and it goes down and anchors your boat, doesn't scare the fish. Annual, here's our annual sponsors. And they're all on ladieslet'sgofishing.com.